E-cigarettes are handheld electronic devices that vaporize liquid that usually contains nicotine, propylene glycol, glycerin, and flavorings. A report out of the UK suggests that vaping is 95% less harmful than smoking tobacco cigarettes, and many people have actually switched to vaping to quit smoking. It's actually considered to be a harm reduction tool. So why would the public generally believe that e-cigarettes are as unhealthy and harmful as smoking tobacco? There's absolutely no combustion in relation to vaping, which is actually the most harmful thing about smoking tobacco cigarettes. Well, it's because the Canadian government generally treats e-cigarettes and tobacco cigarettes the same when it comes to legislation and regulations. But they're actually completely different, like I mentioned. And a report that was completed by the Canadian Constitution Foundation has outlined some problems and recommendations that come along with that legislation. They think that the government's broad policies that ignore the benefits of e-cigarettes versus tobacco smoking get in the way of a person's right to make healthier choices, which ties in with Section 7 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which states, "Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of the person, and the right not to be deprived thereof, except in accordance with the principles of fundamental justice." The recommendation that e-cigarettes not be regulated like tobacco and that the Canadian government look to evidence-based policies such as in the UK, where the government there has provided scientific information that encourages tobacco smokers to make the switch. This has actually resulted in a reduction of 1/3 of adult tobacco smokers and 2/3 of youth tobacco smokers. About 3 million people in the UK have made the switch since the year 2000, with about 98% being ex-smokers. That kind of access to information simply isn't available from the Canadian government, which is another recommendation that the CCF puts forward. If more people knew about the harm reduction that comes along with vaping versus tobacco smoking, it's believed that more people would make the switch. They also believe that the government shouldn't restrict e-liquid flavors, which is a common practice. It's believed that these flavorings lure youth and other non-smokers into vaping. But there's essentially no evidence to back that claim up. It's actually thought that the allure of the different flavorings encourages tobacco smokers to make the healthier switch to electronic cigarettes. It's also a common misconception that youth take up vaping and then they move on to smoking tobacco, and rules and regulations have been formed based on this myth. If you think about it, banning youth from accessing e-cigarettes could force teens that have already tried and become addicted to tobacco to stay addicted to tobacco without the alternative choice to vaping. And that's why the CCF recommends that youth be able to purchase e-cigarettes with the permission of a parent, guardian, or doctor. And finally, e-cigarettes are complex devices and depend on preference. And that's why most shops allow users to try different instruments and fluids before purchase. In some cases, the government doesn't allow this, and it may deter some users away, so it's recommended that vape shops be allowed to consult potential users. It's kind of crazy that the government is formulating policy based on myths instead of thinking about the benefits of traditional tobacco smokers making the switch to vaping. Author Derek Frum says that 40,000 people die from smoking-related illnesses yearly at a cost of $17 billion to our healthcare system. He believes that vaping is an effective, consumer-driven harm reduction tool created by the free market that could largely solve this epidemic. He also tells me that the federal government's Bill S5 will limit the right of Canadians to access testimonials and life-saving scientific information. That bill disallows any products considered appealing to young people, including confectionery, dessert, cannabis, soft or energy drink flavors, prohibits the sale of e-cigarettes to those under 18, prohibits in-store sampling, and doesn't allow any testimonials or endorsements, including peer-reviewed studies. That bill was introduced in the Senate in November of 2016 and is awaiting royal assent. For the Rebel.media, I'm Holly Nicholas. Thanks for watching. If you liked that report, you might like one of my other videos on vaping. Click the video link below to check it out. And please don't forget to subscribe to the Rebels YouTube channel by hitting the link to the side.